to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay.
Welcome to a special midweek episode of Pit Lane Parlay. My name is host Mike Jokum, and we are here to discuss everything IMS, IndyCar, Roger Penske, and what have you. This week, again, brought to you by GridMat.com, the world's first flexible non-slip tool mat developed by an Air Force mechanic. If you use promo code PLP10, you get 10% off. So just in case anybody missed the news, yesterday, Roger Penske and Penske Corporation bought IndyCar, IMS, the IMS Productions. I guess technically it's purchased by Penske Entertainment Corporation. We don't know what the fee is. I guess since they're a private company, we might not ever know. And the purchase should be finalized at some point in the next 60 days, so sometime early in 2020. So just, quick recap here as we dive into it. The first discussions happened actually in the pits at Laguna Seca between Tony George and Roger Penske. So with that being said, guys, how surprised are we that Tony George came up to Roger Penske at Laguna and said, hey, do you want to buy Hulman and Company?
I mean, the timing was kind of awkward since he was had a lot on his plate that weekend anyways. I'm sure he was a little bit overwhelmed, but I mean, I guess it's one of those no time like the present type deals. I mean, let's face it. I'm shocked by everything about this. So the timing, I guess, just fits into that. I mean, Laguna was just over like a month and a half ago, and it's basically a done deal now. So it's very quick. It's very interesting to me.
I can't believe it. I think the timing is a little weird to bring it up at Laguna Seca, but when we saw the news at first, I was perplexed. I didn't really know what to make of it. I was a little worried to start out because these kind of things can have a bad impact if it doesn't go correctly. But honestly, as we're going to talk about throughout the show, I think so far everything sounds good. And Tony George won't be in the picture anymore for the most part. So that's great in my opinion. So crazy day, a historic day. I mean, it was cool to just be encompassed in history. This is going to be something that we're going to be talking about for a long time, up there with the merger, the split, things like that. So, crazy day.
Yeah, wow. Definitely, quite a text message to wake up to in the morning. I guess, 6 weeks is, it's a pretty long length of time, but to buy a multi-million or hundreds of millions of dollars of a company, that's a pretty quick turnaround. So, good on them that they worked it out that quick and it was, an easy process. Are we surprised that out of, anything in IndyCar, almost everything gets leaked in some capacity and nobody had any idea this was coming today. So, where does this rate on your, not really that surprising to, oh my God, is the world ending level of surprise?
I think the fact that it was no rumors whatsoever anywhere, not quite the end of the world, but it was, really just out of left field breaking news that has seismic effects. So I'm really impressed that it wasn't leaked. I think that definitely helps Penske, IndyCar, Hulman Company, whoever, helps them control the narrative a little. Whereas if this got leaked a week ago, I think the rumor mills would have gone crazy and it would have forced Penske or whoever to release a statement, blah, blah, blah. They wouldn't have been able to control the narrative, just announcing it and then having a press conference 2 hours later like they did today. So, I think it really caught just about everybody off guard, and good on them for not leaking it to anybody.
I feel like what they talked about in the press conference, where they talked about the people that were involved in the actual discussions, was a very, very select few people. And I feel like they did that for a reason. And I think that they did a fabulous job on doing this. And yes, I'm surprised it did not get leaked. But I think they did a really good job. And frankly, like you said, I think it helped them kind of keep control of everything and not let it get spun in a light that maybe isn't, true. So I feel like they did the best they could have done with this. I will call it earth-shattering announcement, because I did not see this coming, and the ramifications for, not only IMS and IMS Productions and IndyCar, but also the town of Speedway, the town of Indianapolis, just anybody that has any kind of involvement at all with racing. It's huge.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add to that is I'm glad the press conference was, just a few hours after it first broke. So it quieted down the, for a little bit, the craziness on social media that the world was going to end, and Roger Penske was going to merge IndyCar with NASCAR. I saw some crazy stuff on there this morning, but we will continue on.
That's I don't even know if I have the words for that. Yeah, I mean, like we said earlier, there's so many facets to this that we're going to kind of touch on here, and one of the things that was mentioned in the press conference today was that Penske reiterated the fact that when he acquires businesses, he likes to stick with the assets that the business has already. And when we say assets, we usually mean, the human personnels that they have. And obviously, one of the things that a lot of people were worried about immediately was people like Jay Frye, Mark Miles, Doug Boles, a lot of the great people within IndyCar, and who do such a good job for the sport. And he said that, again, he likes to keep the assets in place and work with what he got. So as far as that goes, do you guys see Jay Frye, Mark Miles keeping their jobs after today's announcement?
Yes. I don't think they're going anywhere. The fact Mark Miles was in the press conference today, speaks pretty highly to that. The fact that Roger Penske kept mentioning Mark Miles and Jay Frye, multiple times throughout the press conference. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they're hugely important to the long-term success of IndyCar. So Roger is smart to keep them on board.
I agree. I definitely see them staying. I mean, he even talked about for some of the changes that possibly could happen at the 500. He talked about, he wanted to get with them and talk about things. So I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon.
Nor do I. Fingers crossed. I think they have done such a good job of building a really good team. And, we're going to talk about things like the schedule, third engine manufacturer, things like that. But it seems like Mark Miles, Jay Frye, Steven Starks, they all have a clear image of what they're trying to do. And so I feel hopefully like that won't be interrupted unless, Penske thinks that something can be done in a separate way, which kind of leads to the next question is that, with things like the third OEM and other stuff, do you still see Jay Frye and company or Mark Miles and company, working autonomously as in they're just kind of going to keep doing what they're doing? Or do you think they're going to have to either accept more input from Roger Penske when it comes to those maybe upper level decisions?
I think it's going to be, I don't know. I think there are going to be situations where it's the two of them that are going to be continuing to just kind of work things out the way they have. But I also think that he is going to have suggestions, and he is going to want to look at different options. Obviously, this is now his baby, and he's going to want it to do well, be profitable, and move forward. So I think there's going to be a good mix of situations where he's going to definitely have input, or he's going to listen to what their input is and go with them, because they have done such a good job here getting IndyCar back to where it is.
Yeah, I think the one thing we won't see is any sort of, major conflict between, Roger and Jay/Mark. I think Jess hit the nail on the head there. There'll be things that Jay and Mark handle on their own just fine. There'll be things, to quote or roughly quote Roger today, it's time, I'm going to take some risks on some things and break the glass. So, who knows what the future will hold there. But, listen, Roger's a go-getter. If he wants something to happen, he's going to find a way to make it happen. But I don't think he'll do that necessarily at the expense of his working relationship with Jay and Mark.
Yeah, I'm going to make an old person reference here since I turn 26 next week, but I bet Roger Penske has one hell of a Rolodex. You think about the amount of people he's connected with over the years, especially in the auto industry. What are you shaking your head at? You're older than me.
That's exactly why we're shaking our head at you.
It's not that much of an old person reference, I guess, but most people my age don't know what a Rolodex is. Is that fair? That's fair. Okay. But yeah, I mean, he's going to have so many connections. I think that's one of the things when Jay Frye was hired that, Jay Frye had so many connections based on his work in the industry in the past. But, you take that and times it by Penske being in the business since 1955. I mean, that's going to be so many connections. So I think, it definitely doesn't hurt to help if they just come to him and say, hey, we're having troubles finding a third engine manufacturer, and help him. Rogers, pulls out his phone and calls 4 people and tries to figure something out. So, yeah, I definitely think that he can definitely offer input and help them, but I still feel like Jay Frye and Mark Miles will continue to kind of do their own thing per se to help the sport.
So on that note, we'll kind of transition into the immediate ramifications for the 500. We won't get into too many details. We don't know too many details. Obviously, everybody's wanting to know about the traditions and everything else, and that's all going to come later down the road. But Penske did make it clear that he wants to work on the fan experience there at the track. He mentioned possibly more fan zones, things like that to make it more fan friendly, I guess. Maybe, I don't know, the whole weekend, just amp it up even more than it already is, which is kind of hard to do. And then he also, somebody asked about, what about guaranteed entries? Because he was in favor of that last year. And he kind of said that he wants to work with Mark Miles and Jay Frye and kind of just get things, clear amongst the 3 of them and just work together to either keep the tradition going or see what would make more business sense for everybody involved. So do you guys think that guaranteed entries are now closer to happening?
Well, you bring up a good point with traditions. I did see on Twitter today, I think I saw that Mike Jochum was going to be doing the Start Your Engines piece now. I can't confirm or deny that, but anyways, yeah, those kind of little subtle things. And even Jay Queer, I think, was saying, the little things like being able to bring in your own cooler and things like that. Like that stuff matters to the fans, and they may have like being minor decisions in a boardroom type setting, but that has a huge impact on just the tradition. And so again, with the 33 entry thing that we've discussed a lot between the months of February and May last year, and it was super annoying, to be honest, but that kind of thing is going to rise again. And I think it's going to be a huge test right away to see if, is Penske going to get his way, or is he going to kind of take a seat and listen to Jay Frye and company, who seem like they're against it? So I definitely see there's more of a chance that guaranteed entries happening now that Penske is the owner, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion quite yet.
I also feel like we will probably have that discussion point probably about 7 or 12 more times before the month of May. In 2020. And yes, I will be giving the command to start your engines next year. You heard it here first.
No, you heard it from me first on Twitter, I guess.
We also worked out the wording on Twitter too. If you guys want to see it, it's going to be real good.
Yeah. And Mike also heard it from me. They hadn't even contacted Mike yet. I kind of just broke it to him. So
That's cool. I appreciate that. Anyway, I like I said, I think we're going to see this discussion brought up plenty more times in the next 6 or 7 months or so. I still don't see guaranteed entries. I think Roger, as a businessman now, will see that Indy will be more successful with Bump Day. The fans will come, the drama will come, and that's going to do wonders for the business. So I wish I came up with that idea, but I did read somebody post that on social media somewhere today. So I don't think it's going to change, but yes, it's definitely going to come up more than once. I mean, it was asked within the first 5 or 8 minutes of the press conference today. So this is a topic that we will watch closely throughout the next couple months.
I don't know that I necessarily feel like it has a better chance, but does it have a better chance of being talked about again? Absolutely. I feel like, Mark and Jay had pretty much tabled it. They were happy with the way things went last year. And obviously the fans were ecstatic. I was ecstatic. I don't know that I've ever screamed and jumped up and down that much in pit lane before. But I definitely think that it's going to get brought up again. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think that it's necessarily a given by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't necessarily think that it's completely not going to happen either, now that he's taken over. And then for the 500 again, do you guys think that Doug Boles is going to be retained in his position?
Yeah, I don't see Doug going anywhere. He's been such an asset for the Speedway and for the fans and the community. I don't think he's going anywhere at all.
God, I hope not. I was actually just texting him the other day. I hope he had some inkling that this was going to happen or something, some insider knowledge. But he's such a good guy and does such a good job for the Speedway. You could obviously tell that the passion is there. So he's kind of another one of those no-brainer decisions when it comes to keeping, strong personnel like Frye and Miles that, Doug Boles also just kind of floats to the top of that list.
I have to agree. I think that it would be a poor business decision with as much face time as he puts in, with as good as he is to the fans, with all the things that he does that's above and beyond. And also, just to throw it in there, kind of feel bad for him. Today is his and Beth's anniversary. Happy 19th anniversary. It kind of got lost in the news. So on that note, we'll move on to our next piece.
Yeah, happy anniversary. There was a lot of things that got lost in the news today. Like Kyle Busch is racing the Rolex 24 next year, and well, nobody cares now.
I was like, who?
So we'll talk some business here. Roger mentioned at the press conference that he wants to bring in some partners and sponsors focusing on growth in North America. So with that being said, let me ask you guys a question here. Do we think that the international races, maybe will kind of fall off the radar at least in the near future? Yes.
And obviously Mark Miles, CEO of Hulman and Company, I never got the sense what Tony George's opinion about that was, or anybody else within the Hulman and Company. I just don't know if they kind of were just letting Miles and Starks and whoever just kind of explore that option, or if they were actually legitimately serious about it. But I don't see it happening. I think Penske may look at all the details and decide that it may be not in the best interest for IndyCar. It's good that he said North America, though. He did highlight the importance of Canada, and hopefully that means we can see at least one more Canadian race added, which I think would be really good, especially in Western Canada. So, I think international races for now, especially in, South America, I think may be in trouble. There's been a couple rumors there, but Australia, Japan, maybe, but I doubt it.
I tend to agree with you for the time being. I don't know that that's like a long-term type of decision. I say for the time being only because I think that there's going to be so many other moving pieces that they need to work on that they're going to have their hands full, and not trying to come up with the logistics of getting the whole series overseas someplace. That just seems like a little bit too much for the time being. So I think that in the end, maybe 3-4 years down the road, IndyCar might try to go international again. But I think for the next couple of years, at least, they should focus on North America and getting this entity to what Penske wants it to be.
I don't like agreeing with both of you, but yes, let's shore up North America. Let's add a second Canadian race, maybe one or two more, maybe one more, United States race. I couldn't think of where we lived for a second there. We're going to leave that in the episode, though.
Same country as Scott Dixon's born in.
Exactly.
That was 110 episodes ago, and I still haven't lived that one down.
Correct.
I think an international discussion is, best suited for Penske and Co. Maybe 2 to 3 years down the line, once everything is stabilized here. He mentioned date equity, which obviously is super important and will probably shift slightly after the Olympics are done this year. But I agree with both of you guys on this one. So with that being said, do you think, speaking of date equity, like I just said, and this is a rough night so far, do you think that Roger Penske will have maybe more of an influence on the schedule? Will IndyCar maybe be more aggressive in trying to secure another race or two?
Yes, I think that he will definitely have an influence. And I think they will be more aggressive because he was talking about, wanting to get a few more places, wanting to do a few big things. So I definitely think that the potential is there for him to be aggressive, get some things on the schedule and make it happen. And no, for the love of God, we're still not going back to Cleveland.
But what if it was 500 miles?
No.
Oh, okay. Dan Gilbert would have to buy IndyCar for Cleveland to happen. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think, yes, I think he will have more of an influence on the schedule. I frantically kept Googling because people kept bringing up, Fontana and Michigan and, a couple others. And they're not owned by Penske anymore. Am I wrong in that? I think they're owned by ISC, and ISC is not related to Penske, are they? From what I kind of understood, it was like joint ventures type deals, but I don't know that for sure. I'd have to go look. I know that the business deal in Michigan was Penske and ISC. Because I know, obviously Penske saved Michigan way back when in the 70s or whatever, and then obviously basically built Fontana from nothing. But I just don't know enough to know if he's still directly involved with them, because if he is in some sort of capacity, Mike's shaking his head no. So I didn't think he was. I know he obviously had a big hand in getting those places up to what they're known as now, but not directly involved anymore. Because if that's the case, then I don't see the talks of Michigan and Fontana being an automatic, especially since he loves Belle Isle so much for the Michigan part of it. So, I think like I said earlier, I think he has connections and can help get maybe an oval or two more back on the schedule. But people thinking Fontana and Michigan are shoo-ins, I think they need to take a step back probably.
Yes. The only thing I lied there is in my Google search while you were talking, both Michigan and Fontana are both owned by ISC, and the website doesn't mention anything of Penske having any sort of current sort of stake or interest in the speedways themselves.
Interesting. Good to know.
The more you know. I feel like I was right, but then I thought I was wrong for a second. You guys gave me this look like I was an idiot.
We just do that naturally.
Is that just the way you guys look at me? Or
Oh, goodness. Okay, so moving on. So for IndyCar, back to IndyCar, Penske is going to try to continue working on getting a third OEM. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I think something along the lines of he's kind of letting Jay continue to work on that more than anything else. So do you guys think that this is going to make it easier for that to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost under the impression that Jay Frye is either really close or something is practically signed on the dotted line. I'm not too sure. It just seems like, Frye was making pretty good headways, especially with the announcement of the hybrid situation, which I think Penske's behind. Hopefully that sticks around. But like I said earlier, like it never hurts to have it never hurts to have Roger Penske and his connections. And if he can at all assist in that, because I know he has lots of different deals with lots of different engine and car manufacturers, that definitely can't hurt to have a guy like him helping you. But I'm just kind of curious what the behind the scenes of everything is like and how close Jay Frye was on November 3rd, one day before the announcement. So it's definitely one of those things that we're going to keep our eye on.
Yeah, I don't know if they're, maybe about to sign on the dotted line, but do I think that adding Roger Penske being, the owner now helps the third OEM debate? No, for sure. I mean, the guy has a Rolodex, probably deeper than all three of our phones combined. So definitely is not a bad thing at all.
Plot twist. What if he actually did have a Rolodex on his desk?
Oh, he definitely does.
Oh, okay.
And it's thick. Yeah, so I have to agree with you guys again. Obviously, the Penske name is known far and wide in all kinds of ventures having to do with vehicles. So clearly, this is not going to be a bad thing for IndyCar when they're trying to find a third manufacturer, because we all know that everybody loves working with Roger, because who wouldn't want to work with him with all of his deals he's got going on? I think it's a great thing for IndyCar, especially in this situation.
I don't know. AJ Allmendinger chose to go to NASCAR instead of driving for Roger Penske's IndyCar program in 2014.
We need a sad trombone noise right now.
Jokes on that guy. All right. We're agreeing too much. We're going to switch up this next question. Jess, you're going to go first. And Mike, whatever Jess says, you have to disagree with her and give a counter argument. Got it? Boom. All right, Jess. One of the things brought up in the press conference by Jenna Fryer, who asked the question, and by almost everybody immediately on social media, was the fact that if Roger Penske owns the IndyCar series and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, that has to be some sort of conflict of interest with, Penske obviously owning, without question, probably the best team in IndyCar history. So Rogers tried to downplay that a little bit. And, one of the things he said was that he's stepping off the timing stand, and that, him running the group in IndyCar is going to be separate from his IndyCar team operation. Does what he said in the press conference and kind of his comments in general ease your fear about what many perceive as a fair playing field for everybody, and not, obvious bias or favoritism toward his own team in the IndyCar series?
Well, how about I just blow your mind right off the bat and say I didn't think that there was going to be any conflict of interest. So yeah, I'm good with it. I'm actually shocked that he's stepping off of the timing stand. I mean, that's just kind of what he's always done. And even when he didn't have to, he did it anyways because he loved it. I know that in Indy, obviously being on the timing stand is not going to happen. He's got way, way too many obligations that day to be able to focus on that. But I think that he could still do the rest of the races him coming off of the timing stand, I think probably does ease other people's fears, but I just can't see him, doing something shady to try to help himself out. I mean, he's already, the be all end all of Indianapolis anyways. Like, why does he need to cheat? Basically, it just doesn't even make any sense.
I don't know how I'm supposed to counter argue that.
Come on, it's a rule. Stop agreeing with everybody.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
I understand. I understand the concern that was pointed out by many people. If Penske goes out and wins the first 4 races of the year and wins the pole in every race, will the conspiracy theories pop up? Yeah, sure. I can 100% guarantee that. I don't know how you ease the fears. I wish I had a better answer on that one, but is it a concern? Yeah, sure. Of course. I read somebody say it's like Roger Goodell owning a team in the NFL, which I don't know. Not really. No, not at all, actually. But so I'm going to disagree with that. I'm trying to think of how I can disagree with Jess here. It is a concern. Obviously, I appreciate what Roger said, but will I, be curious if some sort of decision blatantly goes their way, maybe by a steward or something along those lines? Sure, then I can see the question being completely legitimate.
All you had to do is say, as soon as Verizon became the title sponsor, the Verizon cars just never stopped winning. So parallels, right?
I feel like we're in some like weird Joe Rogan conspiracy episode right now.
No, I mean, I'll stick up with you, Mike. I mean, I may just be arguing for arguing's sake, but it is a legitimate concern to think that the guy who owns the series also owns the team. So there has to be some sort of oversight or separation of powers or something, because listen, Team Penske is not going to stop winning. That's not going to change. And I think Jess said something along the lines of they don't really need to cheat anyways because they're already really good. So, they're going to go out next year, and if, 17 races, they're probably going to win 5 to 7 of them, and that's really not going to change. So, I just hope we as IndyCar fans on social media can not just jump and holler every time Team Penske wins and shout conspiracy theories. So, it is definitely something that we have to keep an eye on, but I tend to agree with Jess on this one. But Mike, good job. I do appreciate you taking the counter argument on that one.
I tried.
Yeah, you did good. You did good. I'm really impressed. I mean, one of the questions that also came up today are points that I saw on social media was the comment about Tony George owned a team when he ran the IRL. And I'm not for 1 second going to compare Vision Racing to Team Penske, because that would be a disservice to Team Penske in the nth degree. But did you guys, I mean, this is kind of like an archived throwback question, but did you guys ever have an issue with Vision Racing participating in the IRL and the early stages of the merger in the IndyCar series? Was that ever a problem for you guys?
No, not at all.
No, that was completely different situation though. They were looking for car count, and Tony George had the funds to make it happen at that time, and he wanted Ed to be able to drive, and it worked out well. And I mean, as far as the team went, they weren't overly successful or anything, but it worked out as far as the situation went, I guess I should say. I never questioned whether they were cheating because of who the owner was. It's just silly.
I have an impromptu stump the host here. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons of racing, how many podium finishes did Ed Carpenter, did Vision Racing have?
1.
No, it's more than that.
No, it's got to be. How many seasons did you say?
Well, they did 5, 08 Indy 500.
I was going to say the 500s, they would have been.
Just the one, 08. Carpenter finished third.
You finished fifth.
Danica finished third. Damn it. No, Marco finished third. I remember.
I'm going to bang my head on the counter soon.
Didn't AJ Foyt the fourth finished like second at Kentucky one year, didn't he?
He finished third at Sonoma, and third in Kentucky in 2007.
2007. All right, I'm gonna stick with 3.
Jess said 1, so she was wrong. You're both wrong. It's 2.
Oh.
The other was Tomas Schechter at Milwaukee in 2006.
God, I can't believe they had Schechter, Carpenter, and Foyt the fourth on a team in one season. Whoever thought that was a good idea?
Them?
Tony George.
Well, and you know why we never accused them of cheating? Because they flat out sucked. That's
They had AJ Foyt the fourth.
He kind of gets a bad rap. I mean, he was stuck on a Foyt team that was pretty trash those early years of his career. I'm not saying he's the best driver out there. I'm just saying cut him some slack. That team was trash.
Well, that was a fun rant. I will continue on here. We are going to call this circle this segment. Well, I just gave away the name of it. Full circle. Tony George and Roger Penske. If everybody remembers, Matt and I might not remember because he was like 4. Were the primary antagonists of the split back in 1996. Has this story now come full circle?
Yes, to act like you. Yes, it has. How many times did Roger Penske call it the IRL today?
At least 5.
At least.
Oh, cringe.
I fully believe that was done on purpose. I don't think that there is anything at all that man does haphazardly. And I feel like he's kind of got his cake and is eating it too.
So you're saying that Roger Penske was trolling Tony George today by calling it IRL?
Multiple times, yes.
I think if that's the case, that's the most savage thing I've ever heard. And I think if that alone should tell everybody that we're in great hands. Yeah, it's so weird because obviously Roger Penske and some of the owners of back in the IndyCar days had a vision, and Tony George took his cake and ate it and made the IRL. And when you thought the story was over in 2008 when they merged, joke's on you because, 11 years later now Roger Penske's, I guess, getting the last laugh. And again, like I said earlier, it's just a historic day, and it's just another chapter that we get to look back on. And it really is weird to think that the split that happened in 1996 still has kind of more subplots going on. So, yeah, it's oddly poetic. And I guess Cart won. We thought IRL won, but, I guess we were wrong, maybe? Question mark? I don't know. I guess it's one for the historians to decide.
Yeah, I'll leave that up to people smarter than me. But yeah, it's certainly.
Wait, hang on. Go ahead, Jess. What do you think?
Sorry, I got excited.
No, I do feel like it came full circle. We just talked about that.
No, I was just pointing out that you're smarter than Mike.
I know you were, but he said go ahead. So
yeah,
I was just going to reiterate the same thing I just said. So
I just wanted you to know that you were smarter than Mike.
Sorry, Mike.
Notice how I didn't say anything.
I'm just gonna, ignore that and take the high road here.
I just called you smarter than me.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's not saying too much, though.
That's right.
Anyway, yeah, it's very ironic if you look back on everything that now Tony George went up to Roger Penske and said, "Hey, actually, do you want to buy this?" And I'll just leave it at that, and we'll move on.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna take kind of the weird bits and pieces here that I've just thought about over the last, 12 hours now, roughly, give or take. things that have popped into my mind because I'm actually from here. And I lived in Speedway at one point. So there's a lot of impacts that could happen to the town of Speedway. Penske, to quote him in the press conference this morning, said to see the growth in Speedway and what's going on just makes me feel better about the opportunities that we have here. So I would say to the citizens and the people who live there and work there that we are excited to be a partner. I really like that. I hope that that's the case. I did not ever Google it, but I know that since roughly sometime in the 60s, the Speedway has been paying extra taxes to keep the property taxes of the people that live there down. It's kind of their thank you for allowing us to have these events type of situation. And I really hope that Penske keeps that up, because I think if he doesn't, it would be a real shame for the people who live there. The taxes have been going up recently, but I still think that the Speedway takes a good chunk of them. Also, just the businesses and the homes that are around the Speedway and things. I really hope that this has a positive impact. And I think that as far as the events go, I think that they will definitely improve. So I think that the businesses will see a boost. Hopefully he can find a way to do good things in the community for the people who live there also.
Yeah, I also hope that Roger Penske improves the pork tenderloins at the track. But one of the things that Roger mentioned today was he was going to walk every inch of the Speedway facilities over the next however many months. And if you're doing that at 82, you're definitely looking for things to improve on. And there are things that could be better. Maybe some extra video screens, for example. So yeah,
I would just go to the turn 2 mound and just give it a big hug and start crying. Be like, this is so great. It's the happiest moment of my life. I'm supremely jealous of Roger Penske. He owns the IndyCar team, and now he owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Does it get better than that? I'm not sure. I mean, what a life. All right, we got several fan questions that rolled in today. We really appreciate a lot of the questions we received today, so we'll get to as many as we can here. First one was from Patreon member Stephen King, who is an author, and he wants to know if we foresee any substantial changes to IndyCar once Team Penske takes over, and more of thinking like in the short term. Do we see anything between maybe now and the Indianapolis 500? Do we see any major announcements IndyCar related? Not like silly season or driver news related or anything like that, but any major series announcements between now and the Indy 500?
Substantial? No. I think that between here and there, he's going to be dipping his toes into the pool instead of jumping in. He's said himself that he'd like to make a top 10 list of things that he's looking to change in the short term. But, that could include small things. So I think that the first changes we see are going to be smaller until he kind of gets a feel of everything that's going on with all of his new, properties. I don't know how you would phrase it, entities, however you want to say it.
I think the biggest change is he's going to make an announcement that James Hinchcliffe gets to drive for whoever he wants for the rest of his life. No, in all seriousness, no, I don't see any big changes in the next 6 months. He's going to, talk to Mark and Jay and the management team, come up with his list of things that he wants to change and wants to keep the same and take things from there. So that's not going to happen in the next couple weeks at least.
I was about to interrupt and say, this wasn't a Joker lap question. This was I thought with the Hinchcliffe thing, I'm like, wait, that seems like a Joker lap answer. And I'll be bold. I think that we will see a major announcement between now and May, and I think it will be in regards to possibly a racetrack being added for next year. That's one of the only things that I could see that would be of substantialness that is worth talking about. Because I don't think a third engine manufacturer may be announced in May, but that might be too soon. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's definitely an interesting thought process and interesting to see, like, we've referenced several times what that top 10 list and how long it's going to take to implement some of those changes he wants.
All right. So our next one comes from at Lone Wolf GAM. Where do we see Jay Penske fitting into the picture here?
I'm really struggling with this one. I've been struggling with this one all day, and I know people go, "Oh, he was he wasn't good at owning what was it, Dragon Racing," but the guy's got a very, very good business background for many years now. So I don't know. Maybe he steps up and he's probably not on the board of directors, but he's got some sort of chief operating officer type bigwig role, and it allows him time to learn from Roger and everybody else, and to potentially grow into either the next CEO or at least co-owner with the Penske family.
Yeah, I don't know the family tree well enough to kind of know the succession or who wants what, that kind of thing, or anything like that. I'm still secretly hoping that he leaves everything to Tim Cindric. I think that Tim Cindric would actually do a pretty good job. Not his biggest fan, but I think his vision and whatnot's really good. So as far as Jay Penske, yeah, I honestly not his biggest fan either. Don't really want him anywhere near IndyCar and don't really like him that much. I think he's actually done pretty well for himself with Dragon Racing and Formula E. I think he's built himself a pretty decent operation over there. Still wish he was an IndyCar owner, but with some of the events that happened there in 2013, it didn't make me miss him that much. So, yeah, I could be without Jay Penske in IndyCar, I guess.
I am going to go with a possible position under Doug Boles at the Speedway. I think that would be an excellent place for him to learn. I think he's obviously got a lot to learn. I don't necessarily have any bad feelings toward him at all, but I think that would be a really good position for him. Just because Doug is so good with, all of his employees, all of the fans, everybody he comes into contact with. So I think that would be a very good person for him to mentor with.
That's a fantastic answer. I think Jess went an entire episode based on that answer alone.
Much better than my answer. I'm just doom and gloom over here.
My answer was, I don't really know.
I'm just I don't like the guy.
Yeah, no, I think Jess is on the right track there. So our next question comes from Linaire White at LYNAIREW on Twitter. Do you think Penske will change the series name back to IRL since you mentioned it 5 or 6 times? Fantastic question, Linaire. First off, I hope I'm saying your name right. Second, your question wins the episode.
Yeah, God, I hope not. Fantastic. No, not the name. The changing the name back to IRL. God, I hope not. Fantastic question, though. I really appreciate that because that was one of my favorites that we encountered on the webs today. So yes, I really hope not. I think IRL makes just about everybody cringe nowadays, and just hope we can stick with just calling it IndyCar.
I'm going to have to bust out some old t-shirts or something if he does. So, yeah.
Still got that collection?
Don't think it's actually going to happen, but I did appreciate him using IRL about 5 times in the press conference.
Breaking out the old Team Cheever Red Bull IRL shirts.
I can get on board with that, but yeah, I don't think it's going to happen either. At least I hope not. I like the ring of IndyCar Series / NTT IndyCar Series, so I kind of hope it, they just continue down that path.
All right. So our next one comes from a Facebook question, and the name, I'm sorry if I butcher this, is Tat Skirvin. And they want to know, Penske has investments and ties to several tracks in North America, which we actually just found out, no, he doesn't anymore. But do you think that those will be back or could be back? Those include Michigan, Charlotte, Homestead, Fontana.
Well, I think like financially aside or ownership aside, like, you know, he still probably has ties to a bunch of those places. And, you know, I was specifically referring to Michigan and Fontana as probably not. I don't know enough about Charlotte and Homestead with his ties to know if they're coming back. And I know somebody out there is probably clamoring for Nazareth, which once upon a time was like, you know, his test track. So it's way too early to tell what his vision is for the schedule. So I don't think his investment history in those tracks will have an effect on the schedule, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think it will have an effect. It won't hurt because he probably knows which one may be worth, you know, revisiting and which one he would have, you know, which one he would not want IndyCar to go to. Homestead is also ISC owned. That was the only one I got to look up while you were talking there. I'm going to piggyback off this question, if that's okay, because Roger specifically brought this up. Just don't shake your head at me. Do you think that an IndyCar NASCAR Roval doubleheader is more likely now because, well, A, Roger brought it up, and B, he knows the Charlotte area very well?
If I say yes, will Jess explode? Oh, okay. Then I'm going to stick with no. Well, no, I'll stick. No, I don't think it's going to happen. Not until at least 2022.
Can I give the answer to the first question first?
Yes.
Not allowed.
Since you guys do that every time I ask a question now.
Blame Mike.
My hope would be that Michigan would come back. Just because it's close and I loved that track. But what I was going to bring up is that the only one that he actually spoke about in the press conference was Charlotte. So there's that. So yeah, I don't know. Do I think that this Charlotte Roval is something that's going to happen? They would need quite a bit of work from, you know, just seeing Joseph's, I don't know, what do you call that, test, exhibition run, whatever. They would need it to be much wider for there to actually be racing there. It's great for one car. But I don't think that it's going to happen anytime like next season or anything.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add there, I think Matt was the one who said people are going to be clamoring for Nazareth. That is in fact correct.
Did you find something?
The lovely folks at the Save Nazareth Speedway Facebook group were very active this morning in talking with me about that I should ask Roger Penske if Nazareth was going to come back on the media teleconference today. There were too many people for me to ask that question, but I don't think Nazareth is going to happen.
No. All right. Next fan question, and I'm sorry I butchered this name. It's Jake Neely, I think is how you say that.
JK.
Who?
Neely.
Yeah, that's long E. Jake Neely, Patreon member. Thanks again for always the support, Jake. He wants to know, let's give me a two-part question. We'll start with part one. What is the best thing that can happen with this new deal that was announced today?
God, that's so difficult because it's such an all-encompassing thing. Since there are so many different moving pieces on this, I'm going to say the best thing, can we do like short-term best thing that could happen? I'm going to go with the short-term best thing that could happen is we get that third OEM in place and we kind of know what the future is starting to look like. We don't know all of the pieces, but we know, the major pieces that are going to be moving forward.
I think the best thing about Roger Penske and Penske Entertainment Corporation now owning everything IndyCar is Roger Penske's Rolodex.
I like it.
Oh, Lord. All right. To say something that Jess didn't answer, I'll say that the best thing going forward, and I guess not super short term, but I think the execution of this new engine package that we're going to see in a couple years, I think as long as that goes smoothly and the engines sound really cool, I think that'd be really good for IndyCar moving forward and a big kind of piece of their puzzle for the next several years. So hopefully that goes really well, and hopefully, Penske backs the vision of what was announced not too long ago. And then part two is, what is the worst thing that could happen with this new deal being announced?
The fact we're going to have people for the next 6 months asking about bump day or guaranteed entries, complaining about unfair advantages that probably won't exist, and other silliness like that.
I'm going to say, and I don't actually foresee this happening, but worst case scenario is that way too many traditions of the Indy 500 change at one time. I think that there's a lot of people, especially in the greater Indianapolis area, who have a lot invested in the 500. And it would be a shame to see all of that tradition go away very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, mine was just the fastest 33. If they do the guaranteed entries for full-time teams, I think that's definitely a step backwards. So that was just my biggest thing.
Very fair points there. All right, we'll wrap it up with one final fan question before we end our special midweek episode here. This is an anonymous fan question. Given Roger Penske's age, do you think that the long-term success of IndyCar is in his best interest, or do you think that Roger Penske will be putting a majority of his focus in the short term?
I personally think that he's still going to be focused long term. He has so many other businesses and ventures and things going on that he never thinks about what's going to happen in a week. He's always thinking about what's going to happen in a year. He's obviously used to running businesses. I'm sure that people are going to be worried about his age and what's going to happen, if something, God forbid, were to happen. And I'm sure that is all spelled out and he has everything planned out. And I have faith that no matter how old he is today, that he's got this.
Yeah, I just don't think he's the type of guy who is only caring about short-term success. So, knock on wood, hopefully he's got, let's be ambitious. Let's say he's got 30 years of life left. I mean, the guy's done it all his entire life and, just repeatedly, succeeded in everything. So why not just age-wise, 110 years old? Why not just full send it? He's that type of guy. I just think that he thinks about long-term success for everything. And he's just going to have, in my opinion, I think he's just going to have the best interests in mind of IndyCar and the fans. And it doesn't matter, how many years of life he's got left. He's just going to do what's best for the sport, in my opinion.
I like that you have him living to 112 years old, because my first statement of my thought was going to be the man is, 82 years old and he still spends all 24 hours on the pit box at the Rolex 24. So he's going to be around kicking for a while.
He's just a tank. He's just a man. He's just the man. He's just the man.
That being glad, you said it before I did. So thank you. 30 is very ambitious. I hope I can make it another 30 years.
You're not that old.
I know. Listen, I just had to say it because you were teasing me earlier.
Oh, whatever.
I think, but I do agree with you. I think Roger Penske is way too smart of a businessman and a motorsports leader to let the long-term success of IndyCar fail in any way just because of him getting up in there in age. I'm sure there are discussions with the soon to be announced, well, in 2 months, board of directors and Jay and Mark and everybody else in management that, have a long-term plan, this, maybe a 5 to 10 year plan type thing that, will be in place no matter what. So, Roger's just too smart of a man to ignore the long-term gain, whether it be, 5 to 10 to 15 years down the line. He's going to be thinking of those sort of things. So with that, does anybody have any lasting thoughts before we wrap up our special episode here?
I got 2 quick yes/no questions for you guys. First one, is the 24-hour race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway going to happen now?
No.
Yes.
And do you think Formula One's coming back now?
Yes.
No.
There you go. Hey, look at that. We ended on disagreement. I'm gonna stick with Jess's answers for both. No and yes to the Formula One race.
All right. And I will just leave it with a, thank you to the Hulman family for everything they've done for the past 73 or 74 years. Without them, my family wouldn't have gotten involved in racing back in the, probably right after the Hulman family came on board in the 1940s. So I probably owe a lot to them, as do, many of us for, where I am today. So I just want to leave with thank you, and their, their long run as owners will never be forgotten.
Yeah. I mean, myself and others, we kind of like to give Tony George a hard time, primarily because of the split. But whatever you say about the split and whatnot, you can't argue that the Indianapolis 500 has been and will always be, the greatest race in the world. And again, a lot of that is thanks to the Hulman George family for what they've turned that race into. So, can't thank them enough for, building something that we all look forward to, like it's Christmas Day all year round. And, we all appreciate what they've done behind the scenes to make that into one of the best days of the year.
I could sit here for an hour and talk about the Hulman George family. Being from Indiana, they're a huge part of, the area I live in, also Terre Haute, Indiana. I know, people around here kind of look up to them like they're royalty. So can't say enough for everything that you've done, not only for the Speedway and IndyCar racing, but also the state of Indiana, city of Indianapolis, and town of Speedway. So thank you again for everything, and we wish you the best of luck.
I think on that note, guys, we can wrap up this episode.
And guys, keep your lug nuts tight.